So
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
in Maryland. So that's you can see the participation trophies I got in middle school.
yeah. Pride and place. We love it. We love
Exactly.
it. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Excited to have you, and got to start by saying congratulations on the recent news. I'm sure everybody in here is, if not a subscriber, very well aware of Morning Brew. So that's massive, and congratulations, well deserved. I think I signed up probably close to when you guys started. You have to just check me on my honesty
I'll
there,
have to
but
check that. That's everyone's favorite line is I was
I
your
was way
first
back.
subscriber.
I was way back there. All right, well, so we have a loose agenda here, and Austin and I had a little chat a few months ago. To that does I can't remember, can't think whether that felt like a long time ago or a short time ago at this point, but we have a little agenda here. Let me know if my screen is sharing. I'm gonna do some sketching in real time too. We're good.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So I think obviously a lot of people are aware of where Morning Brew is now, but would love to rewind back to where you were when you started and do a quick sort of timeline of from today or very recently this huge acquisition news back to when you first had the idea and how you got it off the ground in the first place. So take it
Yeah.
away.
All right. So I was a student at the University of Michigan,
Hmm.
and I thought I was going into finance. If you go to business school in Michigan, you basically only go into finance, or you at least try to go into finance.
Hmm.
And so my sophomore year, I was, studying to become an investment banker, and this guy by the name of Alex Lieberman was writing this newsletter. It wasn't even a newsletter. Like in the email, it was actually a PDF attachment. There was
Mm.
nowhere to sign up. It was pretty good. And the idea behind it was he was a senior. He was helping friends interview prep for jobs in finance because he was also going to finance. And
Hmm.
people just really struggled to resonate with the business world. They were told to read the Times, read the Economist, but just no one wants to read the Times
Right.
or the Economist, the business section. So he started writing a roundup. I was one of the first couple hundred people signed up, and he sent an email saying, "Hey, like, it was never a company, which
Hmm.
is an interesting thing to, like, start a side project that morphs into a company." But he shoots me an email, or he shot everyone an email saying, "Hey, who wants to help me make this thing better?" And I was
Nice.
like, "Yeah, I'm in." And so that was December 2014. We started working to transform this PDF attachment into an email.
Hmm.
The first issue went out March 14th, 2015. So we spent 3 months. We stopped writing the email, which is actually the only time that I've known Alex, and we haven't sent out emails every single day. Which, there's a really interesting dynamic there about a business that is always on versus like a software business, right? If you're a software business, there's like the classic story of Facebook, who when they pivoted and started thinking about newsfeed, they pushed nothing, no other product, right?
Right.
Well, if you're a newsletter company that puts out daily news, you can't just be like, hey, for the next year, we're just not going to write news. It doesn't work like that. And so for the last five and a half, coming up on 6 years, it's been always, always on.
Yeah.
So, but March 14th, 2015, we thought it was, this fun side project. So I, worked on it my junior year, and after junior year, went to this investment bank called Moelis. It's an
Hmm.
investment bank in the city. Works on M&A transactions. Still thinking very much. I don't know what's gonna happen with this Morning Brew thing, but it's a side project, and I'm going full time at Moelis. About halfway through the internship, a few things happen. One, I realized I love the way people in finance think, but I don't want to work in finance. It just wasn't for me. Two,
Yeah.
Morning Brew is growing a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, and then three, the fortune cookie story, which kind of went viral on Twitter. But if you haven't seen it, I can summarize it quickly, which was I was working one night in the office. It was actually one morning. It was like 3 a.m. Yeah, in banking, you work literally just nonstop. It's actually pretty insane. It's very unhealthy. And Yeah, I got Chinese food. It must have. I think it was like Chinese food. I think I got like 10 p.m., but I didn't open it till like 2, 3 a.m.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, this job sucks. Like it's the absolute worst. And I crack open my fortune cookie, and my fortune cookie said, "A banker is someone who offers you an umbrella when the sun is shining." And to me, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like
Poetic.
I don't know if that Chinese food company just like plants those like, or if that was coincidence. But that was like and of course it's like one of those moments where like, no, that wasn't the only reason why. It does make for a good Twitter story. But it definitely was like one of those like, holy shit, like I gotta get the hell out of here. This sucks.
Yeah.
And so, am I supposed to keep going, or are you gonna ask questions? Because I'm happy to
No,
do either
keep
one.
going. Keep going.
Cool.
This is good.
Cool. So yeah, so I decide after they gave me an offer. I was like one of the like, quote unquote best analysts. I was only one of the best because I went to Michigan and we learned about finance. I definitely wasn't one of the smartest. There were a bunch of Ivy League kids who were way smarter. It took them longer to catch up. So I was on like there was a deal. I was in the first deal, and so that looked really good because we closed the deal my summer. And so like I just was like the standout analyst because of the circumstances. And so they gave me an offer, and like in the room, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna say yes. And the guy thought I was joking. He's like, there's no way you're turning it down. And funny story was, I told one of my bosses I was turning it down, and like the second to last day of work, he sat me in a chair in like a corner office. He just paced back and forth for 45 minutes, and he's like, "You are such a fucking moron," and like just 45 minutes straight, just, like cursing me out, like you know, on like over and over and over again for
Yeah,
45 minutes straight, just like going at it. And then a year later, he invested in the seed round as a as an
that's
investor,
a
which
great
is
story.
quite funny. The irony there was pretty great. But yeah, so I mean, senior year, I took all my classes pass fail. I went from caring so much about school and just like wanting to get an A in every single class to couldn't have cared less. Went from a 4.0 student to pass fail. I mean, when I say pass fail, I mean I was just barely passing something. One of the classes, I'm pretty sure I failed, and the teacher just bailed me out because I wouldn't go to class. I just did morning brew all day, all night. That's it. My friends were like, I still had a good time senior year, but my friends were going out Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and I'm just typing this freaking email, and they're like, "Oh, you're such an idiot! Like, what are you doing with your life?" And then after I graduated, they all went to go. All my school friends, I was in the fraternity, like 20 of them went to Southeast Asia, and I packed up my shit, moved to New York, lived at my aunt and uncle's for a couple months, and just started morning brew full time. And that was 2017. I graduated 2017. And summer of 2017, we had that like, oh shit moment where we're like, we're really doing this, and we have no clue what we're doing. We really had no clue. And in hindsight, it's funny. We really, really had absolutely no clue what we were doing.
And how big was the newsletter at that point?
Yeah. So January 1st, 2018. So 6 months after that, it was at almost 100,000. So summer 2017, it was probably like 50, 60, 70,000 throughout that summer.
Yep.
And we hired a couple. We raised 750,000, and like we did a bank account that said $750,000. And to me, that was ridiculous. Meanwhile, the other companies raised tens of millions of dollars before they even thought about the idea. Like they were writing checks for like $1 billion, to SPAC companies. But for us, it was huge. And we said, okay, everyone's out here building these massive media companies doing 100 things. We barely can produce a newsletter. So let's just focus on one thing. Let's wake up every single day and just write the best possible newsletter, grow that newsletter using really clever growth marketing tactics, and then find brands who are willing to sponsor the newsletter and take all of that money we make and fuel it back into growth. So basically, the way we figured out how much money we were going to spend every month was we projected our advertising spend, and we just spend like $1 less than that, and just hoped we didn't run out of money from a cash flow perspective. End of 2018, I think we had like $13,000 in the bank, which was quite scary because we had like employees, or maybe like 6 employees. Yeah, probably 6. But that was a cash flow issue, not a we were never that unprofitable. but we had, $750,000 in receivables, and receivables don't pay people's salaries.
Right.
So 2018 was the year for Morning Brew, where it went from side project to business. We went from 100,000 subscribers to 850,000 subscribers. And that was the massive growth. That was like, holy shit, this thing is real. It's not a little side project. Still didn't think it was gonna be as big as it is today, but it was a real business. We did over $3 million of revenue in 2018. And it was a very clear path to a million subs. And that was our goal. Like, basically we had this belief that if we can get to 1 million subs, like, good things will happen. Who knows what order of magnitude that is? Something good will happen. Like, if we can hit that, something's going to happen. This thing is at least worth a couple dollars a subscriber, and therefore, like, we're at least worth the convertible note we raised. And so, like, we have some value. And so from there, it just took off. I mean, 2019, we went from 850 to almost 2. Now we're approaching. We're not. We're like 2.7, 2.75. And yeah, that was the growth of the newsletter. In 2019, we also launched a few other newsletters. So what we said at the beginning of 2019 is Morning Brew is great, but it's general. It's general news. And we said we only create content in 2 areas. We want to create content in areas in which make people better at their job, or target passion audiences who are super passionate. I believe, and this is like, pretty fundamental belief, I believe that everything else is worthless. Like, if you write about anything else, barring a few media companies, like, sure, New York Times can write about politics, but if you can't make people make people better at their job or target passion audiences, you're worth nothing. Like, you're valueless. And so we started with Emerging Tech Brew to target people who work in emerging technologies. We then went to Retail Brew and just hit an absolute home run in Retail Brew. Like, oh wow, that is awesome. Like, we were truly engaging people who work in corporate retail jobs, and that is so profitable. It's such a great business. We then launched Marketing Brew, again targeting marketers, covering the latest news in marketing. Another home run. And so what I just said there, the Emerging Tech Brew, Retail Brew, and Marketing Brew, those are the B2B verticals. That's how we make people better at their job. Now we're focusing on 2021. Not to say we're not focusing on that. That is all being done. We have a GM for that. Now what I'm focused on is how can we target passion audiences, right? But not just any passion audience, passion audiences that people in 2020, people who read Morning Brew care about. So, for example, people who read Morning Brew in general, I would not say the overlap between that and, like, planting is a big overlap. But you look at things like productivity, entrepreneurship, personal finance, investing. Those things, I believe we can chunk off 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 Morning Brew readers to kick off a flywheel of building sub-franchises. And so in 2021, like, the example I'll give is we're launching a podcast that's going to be both podcast and video, right? It's going to have video content that's going to be all over the web, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and it is going to be the next generation Mad Money. It is going to talk about stocks in a fun, engaging way. It's going to target the Robinhood trader, as I like to call them, the guy who have an account. We put some of our money there. We like to talk about Snowflake. We don't really know what we're talking about, but we think we do. And we look really cool when the market goes up 80%, and so do our stocks. We think we're smart. Like, that's who we're going to target. And I think if you do that, not only can you build a big audience there, but all of a sudden you can move people. You say, okay, now we have an audience in investing. Can we create an investing community? Can we create an investing product? How can we start to charge our readers real money and not just ad dollars? And that's, to me, how we build a diversified revenue business. So that is the transition we're going from now, from a single newsletter to an entire media company that makes people better at their job and taps into passion audiences.
Got it. Awesome, man. I've been furiously sketching away.
Yeah, you're doing a very good job.
As you've been explaining this, one of the things that you touched on in the story piece that I wanted to, like, go back to and explain in just a more comprehensive way is just how you view that growth flywheel and how you think about that. Because the first time we talked, I think if we can sit on that for a little while and kind of visualize that process, I think a lot of people will get a lot out of that. So I'm going to just fire up a new screen here, and we can head back to that. So if I recall, there is a flywheel with 3 labels on it, is the way you think about this. Is that still accurate?
It's write, grow, sell is the way I think about it.
Sorry, the first one you broke up. Right.
Write, grow, sell in like a 3-part flywheel.
Yep. All right. And so fair to say up here that this is the development of better and better content over time.
Yeah, not only just a better content, but it's a better company in general, right? Right. For us, we focused on writing. It's hard to say one's more important than the other. And our content team will tell you they're the most important. Our growth team will tell you they're the most important. And the sales team will tell you they're the most important. But the first thing we focused on is content. We had a vision. Like Alex and I, day one, had this mental image. We threw out a bunch of brands on a screen and we said, what are the things like we want to give off? And we could talk about the tone we wanted, right? Because what makes Morning Brew unique? It's our tone and voice.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about the tone we wanted, and we could write it in a sentence, in a paragraph. We could write it in 2 sentences. Maybe we could write it in 1 story for a full newsletter. But Alex and I acknowledged early on, we couldn't write a full newsletter 6 days a week that wrote in the tone we wanted. And so the first thing we said is, let's raise money to hire a very talented writer. So we hired 1 writer. And then we said, okay, well, that's great. But if we're going to be this bootstrap business, we can't spend a lot of money on marketing. So the marketing dollars we do spend have to be performance driven, and they have to work effectively. And so in the growth cycle, we have our referral program, which is huge. The referral program is, everything. That's probably brought 20% of our subscribers. But more than that, it's become like it's funny, right? When we first started it, and I think this is a good lesson just in embracing things, right? There's 2 ways to look at anything. You can look at ads the same way. You look at the referral program and be like, oh, like it's so tacky and so like amateur to ask people to share your product. That's one way to look at it. Or you say, no, let's go the other way. Let's embrace the shit out of it. Like let's live that. Let's make that a thing. And so now once a month we give away MacBooks. We take it to the extreme. We don't just give away more stickers now. It's like, hey, we're gonna give a MacBook and we're gonna do a whole raffle and we're gonna make jokes about it. And we're gonna, instead of trying to hide it and be shy about it, we're gonna go the other way. Just like, I think one thing you do is some people are very much like, oh, I'm shy about talking about money, how much money I'm making, and you go the other way, right? Like you're very transparent, right? In terms of like, oh, here's how my course are doing. I'll sell the course.
And it's by far the most powerful marketing tactic there is. Yeah.
100%. And so when we started saying, okay, we're not gonna try to hide behind this stuff, but we're gonna actually like live it, embrace it, to be part of our brand, all of a sudden referrals went through the roof. Like we'll tweet about it like every time. And like it's fun. And it was a mindset shift. Someone who's done a really good job about this in sales is Barstool Sports. Barstool embraces ads like nobody else. Like they make ads part of the, and David Dobrik's done this well, right? If David Dobrik, I think, is the best in the world at this when he was doing YouTube videos, where it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, we could like do a quick ad read and like, try to hide the advertiser or whatever, or we could actually like incorporate the advertiser into the story.
Yeah.
And I think that was awesome. So anyway, that's growth. And then sell, our first sales deals, we were doing, we would take anything, right? We were on LinkedIn messaging the director or the head of growth at Casper, at Warby Parker, at Away Luggage, at all these consumer businesses, because we knew they would spend $250, $300 on a newsletter, right? We couldn't work with Amazon or American Express. They're not going to be like, yeah, we're going to spend our time on a $1,000 deal. Right. And that's actually something really interesting we learned about the ad industry is big companies, they don't really care about bang for their buck. They're not trying to get the best deal. They're trying to allocate money. right? It's like an investor. An investor's not going to write a $500 check and they have $1 billion fund. So when we started talking to advertisers, they were like, we love you guys, but we need to be able to spend $100,000 a quarter. We can't spend $5,000 a quarter. That's not worth our time.
Right.
And so it's changed our mindset where we're like, wait, what if instead of giving discounts and trying to discount this inventory, we actually talked about as premium, and we charge, like Discover was our biggest client. They wrote us a $100,000 check. We had zero, and I mean literally zero reason to charge them $100,000, but we had a better chance charging them $100,000 than we did $25,000. And the first time they wrote us a $100,000 check, we're like, holy shit, like that's Discover. You know, like one of the biggest brands in the world wrote a $100,000 check for a newsletter with like 125,000 people. And that just got the flywheel going again, because we hired another writer with that money. We put $50,000 into paid social. And again, it just like, if we had done more, right? If we started doing podcasting or videos or I would say if anything, we were too late to doing more things, but that's so much better than too early, right? Because if you do a bunch of things, don't do them well, like you have nothing to fall back on. So, okay, the podcast failed, but oh wait, the newsletter's not that good either. Oh wait, the Instagram's not that good. Oh wait, we have nothing, right? We started getting very active recently on Instagram, on Twitter, and everyone's like, oh my God, the Twitter's amazing. And it's like, the Twitter is absolutely amazing, but if the Twitter wasn't amazing, we still have the newsletter. It's not like we have nothing to fall back on. So that's the way we looked at it, is very much focusing on this one thing.
And the insights that led to the expansion, where did they come from? Or at what point was there like a catalyst where it's like, okay, newsletter's humming along at 2+ million subscribers. Now let's try this, and this.
Yeah, so it wasn't 2. It was about at 1 we started. So we started like we kind of like grew into a real company out of nowhere. Like we were at 8 people, 2 writers, 3 writers, a growth person, a product person, me, Alex. I think that's 8, something like that. Oh, and one salesperson. So maybe that's 8 or 9. And we kind of woke up one day and we looked at the financials and we're like, we're making too much. Like we're like, wait, we're making a lot of money. Like we're about to profit. We're about to, because of like this inflection point where it costs the same to get $1 and to send 1 email and 1 million emails. The marginal cost is essentially 0. There is a marginal cost, but it's pennies.
Right.
And so we're like, wait, if our costs don't grow, but we grow from 800,000 to 1 million, we're gonna be profiting like a lot of money. And that's when we had the decision. It's like, do we want to like run this like, you know, like a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week type situation, or do we want to build a big business? All right, let's build a business. We did not think it was gonna get to, and we have 75 people now. We'll do 20+ million in revenue this year. I mean, if you would have told me that in 2018, I would have told you you're crazy. 75 people is just, I mean, it wasn't even a thought in our minds. But we sat down and we're like, okay, well, what do we do next? Again, we didn't want to do more general stuff. We didn't want to, you know, do an afternoon news. Everyone's like, oh, do the afternoon tea or something like that, which is a terrible suggestion in terms of a name. But more importantly, like, we don't want to do more news. Like news is, we want to go into passion audiences or make people smarter about their job. But we didn't really know what we wanted to do, right? So we sent out an email, but also we just like, the cool thing about email is it's 2-way communication. So there's a reply button, and people use that reply button, and they will call you very, very mean things when you write about their political candidates or whatever, but also they'll tell you what they want. And we started getting dozens and dozens of email a day. I wish I had morning brew for X. I work in the marketing. Can you make this for finance? Can you make this for marketing? Can you make this for consulting? And we're kind of like, well, if enough people ask us, we don't really know what to do. Next, like, let's do it. You know, I very much wish I could have told you, like, oh, we had $100 million idea, and like we could stay that. Like, of course, my goal would have been we focus on 1 newsletter, and that drives to this thing, and that thing's gonna get to 50 million in revenue. We didn't have that idea. We still have an idea. We're gonna create a bunch of things that do 5, 10, 20 million of revenue. I don't think we're gonna ever have one product that does 100 million of revenue. And therefore, we're like, we could sit around for the next 2 months and brainstorm. At some point, let's just build something. Like, let's just create it. And people loved it. And again, the margins in these businesses are so good, and they're so scalable, and we can grow them very quickly. One thing I was actually mentioning to you is one thing we've learned is, irrespective of what the content is, a plug in an email from another email will always be effective if the email lists are engaged. Always. It doesn't matter if one is about design and one's about business, or one's about business and one's about anything else. Like, actually, that was one of our most successful growth marketing tactics, is we bought ads in other newsletters. Because they're just newsletter people, right? There are people, or just content people, right? And those people are engaged. So that was one of our, and now like everyone's copied us, and now everyone buys ads in other newsletters. But we probably spent $5 million on buying ads in other newsletters. You know, like if any newsletter would let us buy an ad, we'll buy it. But what is interesting is, if we plug our Instagram, so when we plugged Emerging Tech Group the first time, we thought, yeah, we'll get we probably had 1 million or 1.2 million subscribers, maybe a little less. Yeah, like 1 million, 1.2 subscribers. We thought, yeah, we'll get 5,000 people signed up, 10,000. We had 85,000 people signed up in the first day to an email list. It was like one of the biggest email lists in the world, and it was from a single plug. It was crazy. When we plug our Instagram, which is the same type of content, the same brand, we'll get like 500 followers, 600 followers, even with a list of 2.5 million. And so that's such an interesting thing as you think about building on different mediums. It's not that easy to just say like, oh, I'm going to tweet about my email list. You're not going to get 30 people signed up. You might get a small percent, and there's like a level of awareness. Newsletters to newsletter, Instagram to Instagram, Twitter to Twitter, like platforms, that is the way to promote things. It is, I mean, of course, like you want to promote you're going to promote your email list. Like, obviously you're not going to not tweet about it, but promoting that in Morning Brew will get you 100,000 subscribers. Tweeting it, even though you've an engaged Twitter audience, I don't know, but it's not going to do nearly as well because of the different types of medium.
That's a fascinating insight, and maybe changes slightly when you start to get deeper into a specific passion group, right? Or a type of person that is aligned with the focus of the information, maybe more than just the medium. So hopefully
100%.
Yeah.
I would totally agree. I would say that, you know, if you have, like, I mean, obviously the more passionate the audience is, the more they're going to convert. That's anything, right? Maybe that is more so for this type of conversion. Like, that's definitely possible. Another thing is, you know, if it's perceived the right way, portrayed the right way, I mean, good marketing is good marketing. And if you're marketing yourself, you're going to be the best marketer of yourself. So, you know, you can do it. It's not to say that you can't. It's just what we found is when we plug our podcast, might get a couple thousand clicks. We plug in a newsletter, it'll get tens of thousands of clicks.
That's fascinating. Wow. So these were the couple things I had. So we had the timeline. We did a deep dive into that flywheel. Is there more we can talk about on the, like, developing these passion audiences? I'm pretty fascinated about, like, how that strategy is coming together, and particularly the, like, movement down the funnel from his, you know, obviously newsletter is going to be the strongest jumping off point for developing that set of products in every different niche. How are you thinking about those products that come off the back of those new passion segments?
Yeah, so we're very early days in this, and what we're focused on 2021 is not building anything down funnel. We want to build the passion audience. And I think there are a few things about these audiences, right? Number one, we want to leverage the Morning Brew brand, but we don't want to use the Morning Brew brand, right? We don't want to call it like Morning Brew's personal finance podcast. Like, that just sucks to me. Like, it's a different, it's different type of content. You know, you want to be business casual, buy Morning Brew. Number two, people connect with people. People really don't connect that much with brands. So we very much want them to be personality driven, personality focused. There's always a debate and discussion around how front and center do you put your talent, your personality. You know, we're not going to call it the Austin Rief podcast. It'll have a brand, but we do want to put our personality very front and center. You build these almost cult-like followings, and the cult-like following is not for, you know, it's for Jack Butcher, right? Like, that's what it's people, right? It's not visualized value. It is Jack Butcher. And so but people also know your brand, the brand too. So if you were to, if you were to say, okay, I'm like retiring and put someone else there, some people would stay.
It
So
gives you
yeah,
some
I think
optionality as well, right?
yeah. And so that's the way we think about it. At some point, once we, we'll launch a podcast, it'll have additional video content that comes in the podcast. Then we'll make dedicated video content. Then we'll try to create, and we'll build, hopefully, internet celebrities, stars. Now, again, I'm not talking about creating Mr. Beast or David Dobrik. I'm saying, quote unquote, stars within their niche.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see what they engage with. One of the things people underestimate about an advertising business is you see what clients renew. And the clients renew are doing pretty well. So if we're Morning Brew and we see an advertiser spends a couple $1 million every year, that product probably does pretty well. And maybe we want to launch a similar product. Now we don't plan on doing that for Morning Brew, but that's like a way you could think about it, right? So maybe we launch an investing vertical and we're like, wow. And I'll give an example that's really out there because we wouldn't do this. Like, wow, every time we advertise a brokerage, Robinhood does really well. What if we launched our own brokerage? Which that's a task that I don't want to take on.
Right,
but
it's an insight that drives you. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's use a more realistic example, right? We launch a productivity newsletter, and wow, like the click-through rates on our 1 hour webinars that we partner with a productivity expert are really good. When we charge those, $20 a webinar, okay, now we have thousands of people signing up, and then you increase prices. So once you have the media, you have the pipes. You're not reliant on anyone else. You can just test whatever you want and iterate.
That's smart. And then with the personality piece, I mean, that's happening with, you've done that with people that you hired previously. Are you thinking about Morning Brew as like an incubator for talent, or would you go out and source people that have audiences in, passion group X? How are you thinking about finding those faces or growing people's, reputation in any of those given verticals or areas of focus?
Yeah, it's really hard, right? It is really hard. My guess is we'll do both, right? Because there are some people who we're going to want to bring on because we're like, wow, this is simply like, if you think about what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to create two flywheels. One is a demand side flywheel, which is to say, what are all the things we can provide to our audience? A uniform tone, a uniform voice. You can trust our content. We'll give you, we'll give you the same similar mediums. Like when you come to Morning Brew, you know what you're getting, right? Those are all things we're giving you. But from a creator perspective, we have to think about what are we giving creators, right? We're giving you audio visual helps. We're giving you editors and producers.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving you a salary. We're giving you tools to track your analytics. We're giving you distribution. So we retweet you from the Morning Brew account. We repost you so your personality grows. Those are the two flywheels, right? And so there might be a time where we say, we're going to hire this really big name creator because it's not really a profit thing. It's more a marketing thing for creators. Say, hey, like big creators come work at Morning Brew. I do think though, and that's something I've thought about, but I do think for the most part, the creators, we want to get people like on the rise up. We want them to be a hockey stick. We want them just right here. Right. Say, wow, this person's awesome. They just need a little accelerant, right? And if we can help grow their Instagram following 15,000, we can get them 20,000 downloads to their podcast. We can get them 50,000 Twitter followers by me retweeting them, by Morning Brew retweeting, just, distribution. That'll be the fuel for the fire they need to take off. That is the goal. But yeah, we'll incubate people. We'll hire people on the way up. We'll hire people maybe we're stagnating. And we'll hire, at some point, I don't think anytime soon, big name creators. But again, when I say big name creator, I mean in a niche. I don't mean, a big name like influencer.
Right. Yeah, I think, like you say, the long tail of interests and an audience of millions of people is just ridiculous. And if you have that inside information, it's another way I think at scale, you just have such a ridiculous advantage to observe what the market is interested in and then build for it. And then you're kind of combining those two insights, right? The tone that they're bought into of yours and the way you deliver information, and then the things that they want that you're not currently doing. You kind of mash those two up and create a better version of it. That's a great insight.
And I think about it almost like an army, right? It's like each person who joins, each creator who joins Morning Brew makes the entire it makes everyone more powerful. It's a little bit of a network effect, right? Because okay, now that we brought on, our first creator, I can retweet them. I don't have that many followers. Morning Brew can retweet them. They don't have that many followers. So okay, now we bring someone else. Now maybe they only have 20,000 followers, but it is maybe 10,000 unique followers. Okay, now we're all tweeting at each other. We're all retweeting each other. We're joining each other's podcasts to give visibility. We're doing lives. My co-founder, Alex, is very big on LinkedIn. He's a huge following on LinkedIn. I'm focusing more of my time on Twitter. We obviously have one of the biggest email lists in the world. We're going to think about next is going to, once, we got Twitter got to 100,000, which was a big thing for us. We're going to focus on Instagram. That's pretty good, not great, right? It's at 150,000. We get that to 1 million. Then we'll think about YouTube, and we'll have audiences on every platform. And maybe we'll struggle like shit. We can't crack YouTube's code. Let's bring on some of the YouTube audience to help us get going there. You have to be everywhere. And that's the way you think about it. And, it's like, it's this army, right? We want like the Morning Brew army to be everywhere and build and just grow. And I think that will be very powerful.
Awesome, man. This has been incredibly insightful. Everyone who has a question, whack it in the chat. I think we got a few, Austin, that we'll run back through as you've been detailing this out. We've got a few people drop some questions in. Stephen asks, when it came to deciding the Morning Brew direction, you made it sound obvious to pursue a big business over the leaner Tim Ferriss operation. Can you share the fly on the wall of how that conversation went and how you came to the decision you did?
Yeah, so it wasn't obvious at the time. And to be totally honest, even in hindsight, like there are pros and cons to both. So we made the right choice in some regards, but also like there are pros to having a lean business and it not being more of like a big business. So just pros and cons. How we made the decision it wasn't that conscious, to be honest. It was like, okay, well, what if we could do one more thing? Okay, well, we do one more thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's working, but we only hired a writer. Now we need one more salesperson to sell that thing. Okay, now that we have a seller and a writer, it probably makes sense to hire a growth person to help grow that. Now that we're really profitable, we should probably focus on design, something we purposely didn't focus on from the beginning. Okay, now that we focus on design, and it starts to, all of a sudden, it grows and it grows and it grows. Next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, holy shit, we're 50 people, and you're just on that. I mean, the sales team now is 30 people.
Yeah, there's a follow-up question that fits nicely to where you went with that answer, is your approach and philosophy to hiring and how that's changed over time as a result of this thing growing exponentially.
Yeah, this is gonna sound cliche, but like the whole I've made every mistake you could possibly make.
Right.
I have actually made every mistake you could possibly. I would argue that no founder has made more hiring mistakes than I have made. I would put that at this stage in their life. No 26-year-old founder has ever made, and the reason is a few. One, this was the first thing I did. I never worked at a real job. So there'll be times where I'm like, wait, I was like 23. I'm like, what does a CFO actually do? Do we need one of those? And like, it's just so ridiculous, to think about, like, and just like, it's the definition of learning on the fly. Lots of great things came from that, by the way, like lots of just rethinking jobs, like the number of, like, we probably would have this whole like big PR, every media company is a big PR and brand marketing, and they waste all this, in my opinion, waste all this money. And I was like, no, I am our marketing. Our content is our marketing. Our newsletters are marketing. Alex are marketing. Like, we're not going to pay PR. Our growth, our growth marketing is our brand marketing. We don't need to put on big like brand events and go to South by Southwest and like spend millions of dollars. And so those are the good, but there's also been plenty of bad things. I think the approach to hiring. So first and foremost, you can never overthink a hire. What I mean by that is you can never, before you go out with the JD, you can never think and have enough conversations about why do we really need this person and what are we really looking for in this person. Too often do I see people like, yeah, we're a 15-person SaaS business and this is about the time we hire our first salesperson. And yeah, let me just copy the JD from Glassdoor.
Right.
And I'm not really going to have a conversation with the other people who interviewed them, but I just know we need this person. And then you all regroup and you've all picked a different person as your favorite person. You're like, wait, what were you looking for? Like, oh, I really like their salesmanship. And I'm like, oh, but actually they're supposed to be the leader of a sales team. So sure, their salesmanship is fine, but that's actually the fourth thing I was looking for. I need the ability to grow a team. Like, so just not be on the same page about what you're looking for. So like be really, really clear about what you're looking for, write that down, and then come back to that. And if you succeed in a hire, and you make a good hire, be like, I was right, maybe, or maybe you weren't. Because there's also false positives, right? Oftentimes you're right, but for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not being right. You're wrong. You're still wrong. And it's also really important if you hire someone and it doesn't work out, you have to fire them or they leave in 6 or 9 months to look back and say, what were the things that I thought was going to make this person succeed? And why was I wrong? And just being very self-reflective. I mean, just in everything in life. I think it's very important it's such a pain in the ass, but to journal and document and decision journal and say, here's why I did what I did. Now I'm going to forget about that for 6 months and then come back to it. You can't ever to try to sit here and be like, I think we hired them because we thought it's never going to work. You're going to be biased. Sure. You have to write down your thoughts.
So just to look at that question from the other side, like what have the most successful candidates, if anything, had in common? Like people that have really succeeded in the Morning Brew environment, what is it now that you like over-index on in people?
Yeah, what I would say is there are a lot of things we look for in the person, right? So we're looking for someone who's intellectually curious. Like we want people who, especially in the early days, right? We've transitioned what we're looking for. In the early days, we couldn't hire someone who had 10 years of experience. They wouldn't come work for us, so we couldn't afford them.
Right.
So we said, okay, we have to hire someone who who can teach themselves what they need to learn if they don't know it. A good example is, I'll tell it's a long story. I'll tell it very quickly. There's this guy who still works at Morning Brew, and he was a brand ambassador. So he was like, we had a more customized referral program on college campuses. He did an unbelievable job. But the brand ambassador program is really time consuming to run. So we thought this really great idea. Like, what if we hire brand ambassadors to run the brand ambassador program? And so we did that. And this guy, Brian, who's our best ambassador from the previous year, applied. But he already had another job. And he had to commute an hour each way. And his application, everyone's application, it's like we used a Google form, pre-Airtable days. Use a Google form. Right. And like everyone's response is like 2 sentences. One, why would you be good for this job? I work hard. I'm smart. And then you see one answer that is a fucking novel, like a literal novel. And you're like, oh, okay, like this kid cares. So long story short, I was skeptical because another job, but he came every day after work and ran this ambassador program from 5 till 9 p.m. And then we put up a job for a brand partner coordinator or something, and he applied for it. I'm like, Brian, you know absolutely nothing about this. And he's like, yeah, but I'll teach it. I'll teach myself. I'll learn. I'm like, yo, we have to try. I mean, he's done it so far. He's proved us wrong every time, so let's hire him. And I remember he comes to me the first day of work, his first day, and he goes, Austin, like, just want to let you know, he's like, I'm pretty sure I can implement our Salesforce today. I'm like, you've never used Salesforce? He's like, yeah, but I spent the last 2 weeks at my previous job watching YouTube videos all day long. And so like, I'm pretty sure I'm like not an expert at Salesforce, but I'm good enough to set it up. And like, those are the people in the early days. If you're going to bootstrap a company, you need those. Now, all of a sudden, we have the ability to hire really talented and experienced people. So now it's just, how can we fit? It's like a game of Tetris, right? We have all these really talented, hungry people. How can we bring the right leadership and the right people to augment what those people offer? And that's a big challenge, right? It's a big challenge to bring in senior people and integrate them. But that's the challenge we're going through now.
Yeah, Dev actually asked a question. How's it been hiring people who are significantly older than you? Presumably these people who are like legacy media or really like big track record in big businesses have a few years on you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It was much harder in the early days. I very much like, I had a lot of, I still do, but like, it's like the whole classic imposter syndrome, like second guess yourself. But at this point, like, I'm just so much like no one knows, like my mentality in life is no one knows what they're doing. So like, you might as well like your way might be right. My way might be right. By the way, both our ways could be right, right? You could have a good idea. I could have a good idea. They might both work. They might both get the same destination. But at the end of the day, we have to choose one. For better or worse, I'm in charge. And therefore, we're going to go with my idea. If it doesn't work, I'm happy to pivot to yours. But let's have a debate. If you can convince me, I'm more than happy to go with your idea. If we don't, we're going to go with mine, but we're going to go heads down and we're going to go with it. And I don't really care if you're 22 or 18 or 40. At the end of the day, that's just my mentality. And so I've gained a lot of confidence. And it used to be even like 9 months ago when someone 10 years older than me pushed back, I'd be like, well, shit, like she does have a lot more experience than I do.
Right.
And now I'm just kind of like, yeah, but so what? She might be right. So let me have a good conversation. But once you make a decision, it's like, we're going to pretend that debate didn't happen. We're going to either agree and move forward, or if we disagree, we're not going to move forward. But that's kind of the way I confront things. Just like, we're going to make a decision. We're going to go forward. I don't care if you're 10, 20, 30, 50. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy to manage people who are 35, 40. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, good answer. So we got a request for you to expand on a tweet you posted a while ago.
Which tweet is this?
This is I think it's highlighting this one.
Oh.
Holding company where every individual company within the holding company targets the same psychographic in response to few people being interested in this, right?
What's funny is no tweet has gotten more replies than this tweet. And it's not like, it wasn't even like a viral, it was a response. The number of people who I've talked to about this, and I tweeted this like 5 days ago. I've had like 5 conversations about it. My DM blew up. So I think there's an interesting idea behind, there are lots of really great companies. By the way, you should follow Patrick. He's great. That's just a plug for Patrick. But yeah, he has a great podcast, Invest Like the Best. I love it.
All right, we're in.
But perfect. But for there are a lot of great companies out there that are not like, I love venture-backed companies. I actually invest in a bunch of venture-backed companies, but I also think there are a lot of great businesses out there that are not venture-backed. They just take time to grow. Media, maybe they're conference businesses, maybe it's a real estate business, maybe it's a services business. But I think there is an opportunity to buy and build a bunch of companies, obviously start with one, that targets a psychographic person. Psychographic meaning people of the same interests, right? So maybe you're saying, okay, we're going to target upwardly mobile, coastal living people who want to be healthy and want financial freedom. Like, I mean, even you, I would say like in some respect, you target like people who care about design, right? In other ways, that's probably like the demographic, but the psychographic is more you target people who want freedom, right? For the ability to either make money on their own or just like the ability to express themselves. But it's a bit of like freedom and expression, right? But I think there's ability to pick a psychographic. I think there are a few interesting ones. And then just build media that relates to them. Okay, now that we have the media, we connect with them. Can we create a company that has them like grouped together, kind of like YPO or something like that? And they meet each other. Okay, well now you have a connection with them and you're connecting them to other people. Now what else can you do, right? Maybe you have a conference business where we do that all together. Okay, now maybe I don't know, like this is obviously the most extreme example that doesn't make sense, but maybe you buy like the airlines company that takes them there, and obviously that's not a good example, but there are all these things you can do where it's like, maybe more realistic example is like, okay, if you pick that psychographic of people, those people are probably also entrepreneurial. Do you
Yeah.
start, what do entrepreneurs need? Coaching? You start a coaching business and they're your first customers? Maybe, right? You start a services business that helps them sell their business, right? You take a percent. You start a venture capital firm. Anyway, you can just start all these 8, 10, 20. Yeah, over time, you have a portfolio that all targets the same people, but the opposite of the Warren Buffett way. The Warren Buffett way is own a holding company and don't have any of the companies talk to each other. I'm saying,
Right.
no, let's have a holding company. Let's have them all talk to each other.
And as you're explaining that, it's kind of like media is upstream of product in that sense, right? Like you have this ability to one broadcast, but also get feedback and understand what people want, and that can really inform how you develop products that they want.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Like another good example is, like, let's say we target foodies, right? Well, do I want to target, like, maybe you buy a media business that creates content about food, and then maybe you buy or create a food festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what? Maybe I buy or create a sauce business, right? Or a food Instagram account. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you have all these customers that can see what you're doing. You can talk to them, you can learn from them. And maybe you have 5 or 10 different businesses that, maybe they don't only target these people, but they do target these people. I think that's really interesting. It's starting with content community, but building out a bunch of businesses. It's not a venture thing, right? It's not a SaaS business. It's going to take time to build that, but I think it's a generational business that is a project worth taking.
Awesome, man. And we may run over on our questions here, but let me just pick out a couple of others. Bilal asks, do you see anyone who's doing this well, an audience first business that is going into these product extensions and deploying the attention that they're gathering on the media side for building product?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, some people are like, I mean, we're like Morning Brew is doing it a little bit, right? We're like launching other media businesses, but not really. I mean, the best, like, just look at, like, if you guys know what the Churning Group is. The Churning Group does this a little bit now, like within the companies they buy are really interesting, right? Like, they bought a company called, is it like
Churning, CHU.
Churning, Chernin. They buy really interesting companies. And one of the companies they bought, for example, is Meat Eater. It's a media business for like hunting,
Mm-hmm.
fishing, the outdoors, right? And what have they done? Like, right, they now have a TV show on Netflix, I believe it is. They have a store, so you can buy, I'm on their site now, apparel. It's the
Mm-hmm.
meateater.com. You can buy their books. They have kitchenware, right? So they've targeted this, like, outdoorsman hunter person, and they have content. I'm just, like, going through their site now. I haven't spent that much time on it, but this is a good example. They have content about hunting, content about fishing, then content about cooking. Clearly, though, they're not going to tell you how to cook, like, a salad, right? Clearly, it's
Right.
like really neat. And then they have apparel, but all the apparel is very much like apparel for hunting,
Yeah.
accessories, kitchenware, right? They have a subscription sausage box. They partner with Porter Road, and they have that. So I think that's a really good example. They also, I think, launched a whiskey as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, like, that's a really interesting example. Barstool was getting there, but they saw such a big opportunity in sports gambling where it's like
Mm.
they didn't have to. Churning Group, they just bought another company, 2 companies in the last 2 days. One's called Surfline, right? Surfline, I don't know too much about them, but basically they provide I think it's a subscription business. They provide data to surfers. So, okay, that's a really interesting target of people, right? What else can you provide them? What else do surfers need? They launch a surfboard company. Like, they didn't buy that business just to like own it, right? They have plans. I think that's really interesting. Is if you have a loyal audience, you can do so much with them.
Awesome, man. Well, I think we have a great question to wrap up on, which follows the theme, but on a smaller scale. Do you have any insights or observations you can share about the shift towards people becoming media companies? What do you think that means for Morning Brew and other big players in the media space?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It's a great question. It's something I think about a lot. I think there's 2 ways to go with it, right? One is to fight it, So you look at The Economist, right? The Economist is fighting it they have no bylines. And then if you're going to embrace it, there are multiple ways to embrace it. The New York Times has said, okay, we're going to hire every big name journalist. We're going to pay them a shit ton of money. We're going to put them all behind a subscription. Right? Morning Brew, I think we are embracing as well by having personality first media companies. Not every personality wants to be not every person wants to be a business. Some people want to get a paycheck. Not everyone wants to have wants to build everything that people are building. Some people just say, you know what, like, I want to do this, or I want to have a media company help accelerate me. And in 5 years, I'll start my own podcast or my own newsletter. And so there are going to be lots of people who succeed doing their own. I think that's much harder than people think. There are people who are very good at it. I think there are a few things in common with the people who succeed. Not everyone, again, but a lot of people. One, they target company credit cards, right? If you target company credit card, you're more likely to succeed. Two, you target rich people, right? Like Ben Thompson's great. He targets venture capitalists. Like, they're not going to worry about $120. But if you're just like a journalist, like writing on the internet, like, could you succeed? Yeah, but it's tough. It's really, really hard. So the way we think about embracing it is by building brands around these people and by building that supply side flywheel that talks about before, where we give them tools so their lives are easier. So they're not editing their own videos and all this, whatever. Is Morning Brew ever going to be able to hire an influencer who makes $100 million a year? Like, no, but there aren't that many of those people, right? We want to find the right balance, the right people. But it's fascinating. Like, it's going to be so interesting to see the space and see the creator space. And, whether it's Gumroad or Teachable or Circle or, these businesses are awesome. It's really, really, really interesting. So I'm excited to see it. Everyone's going to play it differently. My guess, though, is a bunch of people are going to be stuck in the middle and they're going to be screwed. And you're seeing that. Like, there was an article written by, I think this is Matthew Iglesias. He just left. He was a co-founder of Vox. He just left. And I can pull up the link. I can send it to you after. But he basically wrote a whole paragraph of all the people the New York Times took, like this person and this person, this person. He goes, and that's just from Vox. It was just one media company. They took 8 people, and it's because Vox is kind of stuck in the middle a little bit, right? They don't have a subscription, and they don't put the people front. They're in the middle, and so it's tough. It's really hard to deal with personality, but it's also hard to start your own thing. And so I think a lot of people, especially on Substack, I'm very bearish on all these people think, I'm just gonna get people to pay me $10 a month for a newsletter. To me, I'm bearish on it for a few reasons. The number one reason is a newsletter is actually I'm biased, of course, but is the best way to connect with your audience. If you tweet something, who knows when Twitter's going to change their algorithm? Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah, Twitter is great. I love Twitter, but a newsletter is always in your inbox, right? Like, a newsletter is great. It goes straight to you. If Gmail were to start pushing stuff to trash, like, maybe people will change to inbox where they can get what they want. But then if you want email, it's going to come to you. But if you start putting your emails behind a paywall, you're going to hinder email growth. Mm-hmm. You're hindering growth of what I believe is the best connection to your audience. Yep. So I think it's tough. So if it's not really, really good, if it's not your money maker, I think it's always better off to have your email be free. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's it's a fascinating space to observe, like a bubble in any other economic term, right? It's just completely overinflated with examples of the very few standout examples kind of infiltrating everyone, thinking that they're on that same trajectory. Super.
I do think the opportunity for Substack, though, is not to have 1,000 or 10,000 journalists be on their platform. I think it's to create 10,000 or maybe even 1 million new writers. If Substack can create people who weren't writing before who are writing now, then they can succeed. But if they think like, and I think it's just a marketing tactic right now, right? They get big writers. It's just a way to market their platform. But yeah, I think there's a way for them to succeed. I think I'm a big fan, but I just think the creator space is fascinating. I like to watch it, invest in it, be a part of it.
Awesome, man. Well, Austin, thanks for going over here. Much appreciated, mate. That was a That was a great conversation. We got some good notes, some good sketches, good questions. Where can people find you? Let's get you some Twitter.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Austin_Rief. I'm just trying to catch up with Jack here. He has escape velocity, but maybe he'll shoot me a retweet on something, and I'll try to catch up.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and enjoy the home comforts for a little longer. All right.
Thank you. Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Mate. Take it easy. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.